Hello, my name is Mark Taylor, and you're very welcome to the show, which is part of the Education on Fire podcast network. I just wanted to take this moment to thank our sponsor, the National Association for Primary Education, who speak for young children and all who live and work for them. This can include parents, teachers, governors, and all those interested in primary education. NAPE, which is a non-political charity, works tirelessly to support teachers in the classroom and leads the primary umbrella group of 30 primary subjects associations and unions, and gives teachers and schools a voice at governmental level at consultation meetings with ministers for schools. If you'd like your voice to be heard and to find out more information, please visit their website at nape.org.uk. That's nape.org.uk. Hello and welcome to the Education on Fire podcast. The place where we share creative and inspiring learning in our schools. Hello, welcome back to the Education on Fire podcast. My name is Mark Taylor, and today we're continuing our Wellbeing season, and I'm delighted to be chatting to Mike Buchanan, who's the Executive Director of HMC, which is the English-speaking world's oldest association of head teachers. But I first came across him because of his involvement with IPEN, which is the International Positive Education Network, and I went there first, I think 2 or 3 years ago, to their Wellbeing conference, and then was invited back again as part of the National Association for Primary Education to their recent one in Westminster. And it was such a great event. There were so many great speakers, so many great things that are really bringing sort of positivity and wellness into the education world. And I just wanted to have this opportunity to share this fantastic organisation and the general background that's really supporting teachers. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Mark.
So can we start with a little bit of professional background? Let's give people a bit of an insight in the sort of professional history that you've had, because I know you've been in many schools and you've got lots and lots of experience in education as a whole, not just related to IPEN.
No, I guess so. As you correctly said, I currently run the Head Teachers Association in the UK called HMC, and that represents a relatively small number, but some of the heads of the leading independent schools in the UK and indeed around the world. And if you were to name an independent school, probably the head of that institution is one of the members who I serve. And my job there really is twofold. In really colloquial terms, the first thing I do is to help people not to do stupid things, if I can put it that way. And that may well be politicians. I have an example of that in the UK at the moment. From my perspective anyway, and sometimes as members. And then the more exciting bit, as far as I'm concerned, but equally important also, is to use the really disproportionate convening power of the people who are members and the organisation itself to bring people together, to convene and connect people. And that sits really well with the International Positive Education Network as well. Prior to that, I haven't been in this role for more than 12 months yet, coming up 12 months in a few days' time. Prior to that, I was a head teacher of a independent school in the UK, a place called Ashford School. Not terribly well known, but I was the head teacher for 14 years. When I took it on, it was a charming, utterly complacent, inward-looking and not very successful school. Happened to be a girls' school. That's not terribly relevant. And I was invited to merge it with another and create something new and much more outward-looking, dynamic and modern, if I can put it that way. Did that for 14 years. That was a great experience, hugely exciting. I could talk about that for ages. And then prior to that, worked in schools in London and in the southeast of England. I've been really fortunate to find myself in great schools with great leaders who took the view that I also take, and that is education is the combination of trying to maximize the achievements of the young people and children in the school with developing them as people, and doing that through adults modeling what it is we're expecting of those children and young people. So if you want curious children, then you've got to demonstrate curiosity yourself. You've got to show it, and the adults around them, be they teachers, support staff, or indeed their parents, have got to buy into that approach. And I think that's the nature of real education, in my view.
Absolutely, and interestingly, you're also involved in the Chartered College of Teaching as well, aren't you? So is that something that you've been able to really sort of impress in that particular organisation?
So there's probably a theme coming out here. I like to do multiple things and to try and bring the same sort of threads and the same ideas to bear in different places. Basically, I'm driven by my ability to influence, I hope, in a positive way, as broadly as I can. So yes, I'm a founding fellow of the Chartered College of Teaching, and in conversation with Dame Alison Peacock, the chief executive there, I only help in a very small way. I try to connect her and other fellows around the world so that they can talk about what is the nature of education now, and even more importantly, what should it be in the future when we're trying to deal with and help young people to deal with all of the issues that they face, not least their own mental health and well-being, but also things like climate change and the changing nature of work, the changing nature of being a young adult, all of those societal issues, which I think are right at the centre of what a great education should be. So, yep, Chartered College I'm involved in, IPEN I'm involved in, helping to guide and influence head teachers I'm involved in. I also happen to be the chair of what's known in England as a multi-academy trust. It's a group of state-funded schools not far from where I live in Kent.
I mean, that's an awful lot going on, but like you said, I love the theme of that kind of combining people, connecting people, having conversations, and I love that cross-generation, the fact that, you're modelling exactly what it is that young people can see and be part of and share, and I think that's such an important factor when, rather than, as I've experienced sometimes with our children as they've gone through the education system, that sense of not wanting to be wrong or not wanting to put themselves out there. What you're talking about is almost completely the opposite. It's about, being everything that you are as a person and bringing that together with all the people around you.
I think that's right. And as a head teacher, in order to help the adults around me understand what it was I was hoping they might be able to do, I coined a phrase called Adventurous Learning. And initially when I said, look, what we're trying to do here is adventurous learning, nobody had the faintest idea of what that meant. So we simply unpacked, what does adventurous mean? Take any meaning you like of the word adventurous and any meaning you like of the word learning, and then indeed any meaning of the combined phrase adventurous learning. And that is what we're trying to do. So it's really bespoke to the individual adult and the individual child. And it's about encouraging people to take risks, measured risks, not stupid risks. We're not talking about risks with health and safety, though health and safety should never be used as a reason for not doing something. But measured risks that encourage people to explore. And certainly in my time as a head teacher, in one sense, I thought I failed because there was never a challenge that we put to the young people in my school that they didn't live up to, and in a sense that means we didn't challenge them enough, and that was our challenge every time as adults. Have we found something that really pushes these young people to their limits, to the point actually, yes, of course they fail, that doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with things when they go wrong, and I give an example where I used to, as all head teachers do, they love talking, and I used to talk to the young people in assembly each week. As an aside, actually, I was more talking to the adults in the room than the children because the children generally got it. So that was reinforcing messages really to the adults who had to lead it and implement it. But I used to talk about, beginning of each holidays, I used to say, well, look, you could use the holidays to sit and relax and do whatever you do to relax. And of course, you should do some of that. But you should also use the opportunity just to test yourself a bit, try something new. You don't need to tell people about it, just try it out. I remember August, I think it was August the 12th, I got a text message from one of the students. He was a 16-year-old boy, and he texted me saying, I listened to what you said in assembly, and I'm on the start line in Brighton for my first marathon. And I thought, wow, that's fantastic. It's fantastic that he's doing that. He shouldn't have been doing it, of course, because you're not supposed to run the marathon until you're 18. But he obviously got around that particular issue. And it's so gratifying to have that sort of thing reflected back in how people behave, whether they're adults or young people.
I mean, the whole essence of what this podcast network is all about is about lighting the fire rather than filling the pail, and that's exactly what you've just been describing there. And I think when you can encourage people to be like that, like I say, whether it's the teachers, whether it's the children within the school, and everyone involved, it really makes a big difference. And I think from a wellbeing point of view, and certainly from my experience of having been to some of the events, it's certainly the sense that, you know, people often think about well-being in terms of trying to fix things when they start to be going wrong, or way of that sort of sorting out kind of idea. But actually, talking in the way that you're talking today and the sorts of positivity that's coming through, that's a very it's the essence really of actually having you on a path which is that sort of growth mindset and that sort of flourishing idea, which I think really supports your mental health certainly anyway, rather than it being the other way around.
I think that's right. I think often when I go to conferences about well-being, it falls into the trap of talking about trying to cure mental health ills. Now, I'm not suggesting that's not important. Of course it's important. But curing something is not the same as ensuring that people are well placed to deal with issues when they come along. And that's really what I mean by well-being. So mental health, really important, and dealing with mental health illness, really important. But there's a much, much broader picture when it comes to well-being. And in institutions like schools or universities, it's a cultural thing. It's your approach as a leader to an institution, or as a teacher in a classroom, or as a support worker. Can I tell you? I love telling anecdotes. Can I tell you another anecdote?
Yes, please do.
Where I was the head, as you do as a head teacher, you just sort of give a State of the Nation talk at the beginning of each academic year, and you hope that it's inspirational and forward-looking, etc., etc. And I'd done 5 or 6 of these, and I was standing outside the hall where all the staff had gathered. There were about 350 support staff as well as teachers, everybody coming together. And I thought, well, I don't really have anything to say. I'll just do the usual stuff of looking at how the exam results went and what we achieved last year, and let's carry on doing what we've been doing. But I was standing in the music department, and around me were the music practice rooms, and I thought, that's interesting. We have all these music peripatetic teachers, visiting instrumental teachers coming along, and for at least part of the day they sit there unoccupied. So I thought, okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to all of the assembled staff, not having got any money for this, nor anticipating any great response, but I'm going to say to all of the assembled staff, if you'd like to learn a musical instrument, then I will pay for it. Not me personally, but the school. So the school will pay for it. And I didn't tell them this at the time. The only 2 conditions I'm going to impose are that you perform at some point. You could perform to your cat at home. You could join one of the school orchestras. You can create your own band. You can do whatever you like, but you perform. And the second is that you have your lessons alongside the pupils during the working day. The reason for that was very simple. I wanted students to recognize that learning is not just what you do in a 45 square meter box 6 times a day if you're in a secondary school, but it's what you do throughout your life. And I wanted the adults to remember how difficult learning is, and it's not a nice linear process that gets you to an end goal. It hunts around and it goes up and down, and it takes huge effort and resilience and determination, and sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. And I had 50 or 60 people saying, "Can I do this, please?" And we did it every year subsequently. So over about 5 or 6 years, I don't know, 150 or so staff did it. We started with people who'd never, ever had any experience of music before. And it made a significant difference to the school because it did remind the adults of what it's like to learn, and it reminded the kids about what it's like to be a learner as an adult as well. And I remember one of my colleagues, not a teacher, one of the support staff, a French lady, came up to me about a year or so in, and she said, "Mike, I like the idea of learning a musical instrument, but do you think I could have speech and drama lessons instead?" And I said, "Well, that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Why? Tell me why." And she said, "Well, look, I've lived in this country for 25 years. I've got a thick French accent. I won't try to imitate it, and I'd like to try and get rid of it." I said, "Okay, that's fine. You go off and have speech and drama lessons and come back in 6 months or 12 months and tell me how you go on." And she came back in 12 months, and she said that was, the one of the greatest experiences of my life, because it's taught me how to be confident in front of other people. It didn't make the blindest bit of difference to her accent, but it made a huge difference to her as a person. And again, that's hugely gratifying because all the kids around knew exactly what was happening. They could see what was happening, and they just built up and up and up on it. There are dozens of stories like that I could tell.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and as a professional musician myself, the whole music thing is something I'm very passionate about, and I love the fact that the learning aspect from a teacher's point of view and what that feels like, and also, like you said, the not being just involved in a classroom, the fact that it's not about just these few years that you're learning. And just that joint sense that we're all doing it together, no matter where you are in either the hierarchy or even an age differentiation between you all. It's something which we're all doing all, sort of year on year, and I think that's absolutely fantastic.
No, I agree. I mean, I learned the euphonium. Don't ask me why. I learned the euphonium and joined the junior orchestra and sat next to Julia, who was a trumpeter, a 12-year-old trumpeter. And that was uncomfortable for her to begin with, particularly uncomfortable because I didn't know what the hell I was doing and I had to rely on her. But over time, she realized, actually, this is how real life works. And we rely on each other and we help each other. And it doesn't matter whether the person next to me happens to be the head teacher of the school or not.
I think that's great, and it really does. It does inspire me to even more and more to make sure that there's regular music going on in every school. I think it's such an important factor for all of those reasons that we've spoken about.
Music and drama are the keys to self-expression and self-discovery.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect, and that's exactly how I felt as a sort of 11, 12-year-old boy who suddenly started learning to play the drums. It was that kind of suddenly finding your voice in a way that you'd never had the opportunity to before, and I think, that broad expanse and that exposure is so key. So let's talk about IPEN now. Let's talk about exactly what the organisation is, how it works across this country and multiple countries around the world, and the sorts of things that people listening can really get from it.
Okay, so starting from the beginning, the International Positive Education Network, I guess, is about 5 or 6 years old. It comes out of a meeting of I don't know, a dozen or so people, of which I was not one, under the auspices of Sir Anthony Selden, who is now the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buckingham, but was at that point the head teacher of Wellington College in the UK, and him bringing together a number of leading psychologists, not least Professor Marty Seligman, who's the father of positive psychology based at the University of Pennsylvania. Together they founded the International Positive Education Network, IPEN, and the aim of the network is very simple. You've heard me describe this already, which is perhaps why I've ended up as the chair here in the UK and Europe. So that the purpose of IPEN is to combine maximizing the achievements, including the academic achievements of young people, with developing their well-being and character. So the image you should have in your mind is a double helix of those two things: achievements, well-being, character, intertwined, completely interdependent, and doing that on the basis of evidence research and turning that evidence research into implementable strategies in schools, and then disseminating that through connecting people. And there are probably, I don't know, tens of thousands of educators across the globe who are connected through IPEN, and various countries around the world are at different stages. So it's got too big now to be overseen as a single global organization. And so there are branches, if I can put it that way, regions in the UK and Europe, and that's what I'm overseeing and hoping to grow at the moment. There's a very mature equivalent in Australasia. There's a growing equivalent in the Middle East, coming out of Dubai in particular. Likewise in the States, in Canada, in South Africa, in China, in Southeast Asia. In other words, all over the world. In South America, there's some really interesting stuff happening all over the world in those two areas of achievements and well-being character. And up until a year or so ago, there was a biannual conference, happened to be in the States, in Dallas in the first instance, and then in Fort Worth. And I went. I have been to both of those, invited by Anthony Seldon, and there are thousands of people there, all trying to promote this idea of a different approach to education. We've coined it positive education. And that is the combination of those couple of things. Now, in the UK, we are beginning to grow a bigger and bigger network, or the UK Europe, and it's a relatively small organisation. So there's me and one or two others currently, but the idea is that we grow it, and our ambition is over the next, I don't know how many years it might take, 5-10 years. Over the next 5-10 years, that we have we grow a network of 1 million people across the UK and Europe, 1,000 institutions who are signed up to a positive education approach, and at least one government that puts in well-being as one of its national KPIs. Now, that might to your listeners sound incredibly ambitious, and it is. So I'm calling people to action to join me. Over the course of 2019-20, the way we're going to do that is by holding regional one-day events. So the first of those is coming up in, we've already had one. So on the 2nd of September, I invited Carol Dweck to London to come and talk about her theories and the practice of growth mindset. And that was attended by several hundreds of people, and we had a fantastic day. And then on the 17th of October in London, there's the first of the regular events, and that will have speakers such as Paul Dolan, who's the LSE professor on well-being, coming to speak. Anthony Seldon will be speaking. I'll be saying a few words, and then practitioners who are coming along to say, to show what they're doing and how they can do it. So we'll have both keynotes and some workshops, and then we go on a sort of roadshow. So we've got events planned for Edinburgh, for Hull, for Manchester. I think I've just had one confirmed today. Somewhere in Scandinavia, possibly Denmark or Holland, Germany. Somebody from Kazakhstan contacted me a few weeks ago saying, can you count Kazakhstan as part of Europe? I think we probably can. Madrid. In other words, probably not quite one a month for the next 12 months or so, where we hope to gather people who want to learn about what we're doing, spread the word, grow the network, and talk to me and others about, well, how do we build iPen UK Europe hereafter? And I can talk more about that.
Yes, I'm really interested in, and you touched on it there, is the fact that how that then filters through to changing education that people listening will see inside their schools and their organisations. Do you think it is that kind of coming together of people, and it will just gradually become what people do within the education system, because we all know it's what's desperately needed? Or do you think it's just that sheer weight of passion and people that will then change government policy or give us a way that we can reset the whole bar?
I think it's a whole combination of things, of which you've mentioned a couple. So I think, first of all, I'm looking for evangelists who will go out from these events and convert others to not just the idea of positive education, but how you can go about it. So one step at a time. Here's something you can try. If it doesn't work, then that's fine. But come back and talk to us about it. So evangelists at the grassroots level, and then there is already, I think, an alignment in policy thinking in many countries, and including the UK. So whether you like Ofsted or not, that's the inspection system in England. The new framework, the new approach they're using, which has just started this September in schools in England, is a step towards a much broader definition of education. We have in England, and probably in the Western world, got stuck into thinking that qualifications are education. And my view, and that of lots of people, is that qualifications are only a tiny part of education. They are not what makes an educated person. So the inspection system, I think, is aligning. A lot of the thinking that's happening at regional level and sort of institutional level is going that way as well. So I talk a lot to the other head teachers unions, not least Jeff Barton at the ASCL, the state head teachers union, and he and I are exactly aligned in terms of what does a real education look like, and it is exactly as we've described. And at government level as well, you can see it. I mean, David Cameron, one of the former prime ministers here in the UK, almost got there in terms of putting well-being into the national psyche as one of the key performance indicators. And the people I talk to and Sir Anthony Selden talked to are pretty much in agreement that this is something we should be doing. So it's a matter of how we get there. All of that, I think, is really, really encouraging. So, yeah, grassroots upwards with some strategic work by me and others at a policy level.
It all sounds very positive, which is fantastic as a network, and the fact that you start to have a sense that there is this sort of passionate wave of people that are able to show you all those different levels, like you said, in terms of this is something that you can do in your school tomorrow. And at the same time, we're also talking about, like you say, policy and people being able to take all those things on board. So I think that growing tide of people, I think, is something which should gather speed quite quickly. I would hope as well, especially as we get the chance to talk more and more about these things through things like this podcast and, like I say, and the conferences and things that you actually put on. So for people that are interested to find out more and want to get involved, where's the best place for them to go and do that?
So I think probably at the moment the best thing to do is to follow on Twitter. So it's at POSEdNet. And the Twitter feed's is the sort of most up-to-date and easiest to follow. At the moment, we have to charge for attendance because that's our only income in order to be able to hire the venue, get speakers when we do have to pay for them, though most of the time we don't have to pay for them, and to build up a bit of investment income that we can take the organisation to the next level. If there are any philanthropists out there listening, I'd be really interested in talking to them because I am trying to seek some seed funding so that we can accelerate the rate at which we go. And the next stage really is to look at how can we provide different levels of individual accreditation and the training that goes with it, different levels of institute accreditation, and the training and quality control that goes with it as well. And we hope to be able to, start doing that somewhere in 2020. I would hope. But in the meantime, have a look at Eventbrite and follow us on at POSEdNet. Or you can follow me if you wish on this is my work Twitter, so it's at HMC Executive Director.
Fantastic. Well, Mike, thanks so much for chatting to me. It's really encouraging that like wave of positivity that you've been talking about comes across so passionately, and I can understand how the future can become attainable by everyone coming together, and it needs people like you to be able to just sort of galvanise people and just show the way and that guiding light, and the fact that we're all involved in whichever level of education we're involved at, and it's a very exciting time, and I do encourage everyone to check out all those things, and they will be on the show notes for this page as well. So if you go to educationonfire.com/IPEN, IPEN, we'll have details of all those things on there as well. So thank you very much for spending time with us and really informing us about everything to do with that. And I really hope to see you at one of the local events coming soon.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the Education on Fire podcast. For more information of each episode and to get in touch, go to educationonfire.com. Education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Do you need help and support in creating and embedding music in your school? If so, we have created Primary Music on Fire to help you with just this, a music membership site that's taking the fear out of teaching music by giving you the step-by-step skills and ongoing support you need to produce lifelong musical memories for you, your school and your pupils. Go to educationonfire.com/primary-music.